Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome here to the Launchpad and our live launch coverage of CRS-27, launching from Launch Complex 39A at NASA Kennedy Space Center in Florida. If it's your first time here, welcome. My name's Zach. I'm the founder and host here at TLP, and here at the Launchpad, it's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow because we believe that space is better together, and we're glad to have you joining us for today's live launch coverage. If it's your first time here, welcome. Take a moment, hit that subscribe button so you never miss another live launch coverage, docking, undocking, or return to Earth. It's been a busy month on board the International Space Station, and it is just continuing on as we now go through March, but we're glad to have you here. As always, as we get started, take a moment, let us know in the chat where you're watching from, as well as engaging that like button. Really does help us out, and if you want to, share it out on your social medias or your Discords, and invite people to join us as we count down now just about 31 minutes, 14 seconds and counting until liftoff. On your screen is a live view of Launch Complex 39A, where NASA and SpaceX are preparing for launch. A SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket booster 1073 preparing for its 7th flight here today, with a cargo Dragon full of resupply for the International Space Station. As always, if you want to learn more about today's mission, you can do so by heading on over to tlpnetwork.com/launches, click on the mission briefing, or click the link in the description below. That's where you can see today's detailed mission briefing about the booster, the payloads, and everything on board. We've got a whole bunch of information about what's on board today's CRS-27 mission. Some really incredible stuff, so definitely take some time while we count down to launch and check that out. But as always, you can head on over there, and that's where you can find our launch calendar to see all upcoming launches, whether they're confirmed, pending, or to be determined, and see detailed mission briefings for all of those. We just rolled out our brand new If You Want to Join Our Crew page, so head on over to About. That's where you can see our amazing TLP crew. We believe that space is better together, and we'd love to have you consider joining our crew. If you're interested, you can hit Join the Team. That's where you can fill out that application and consider joining us. The last thing to get out of the way before we talk about what we're actually here for is our shop. Check out the launchpad.store. Head over to the website and click shop. It is launch day. Use promo code launch day. You can get 10% off of everything on the store, and we are starting to roll out prints as well. So lots of different things available, sizes extra small to 5XL, and global shipping is available. But we're not here for shopping. We are here for today's launch. SpaceX should be getting underway here, so let's listen into an update from Mission Control. Well, a slight change. They're delaying their launch commentary here, but that is okay. We've still got this fantastic live view of Launch Complex 39A at NASA Kennedy Space Center. We're going to be answering your guys' comments and questions throughout today's stream, so you can send those in the chat by tagging us at the Launchpad, and we'll work on answering those live throughout the course of this evening. Just make sure you're tagging us at the Launchpad. That makes sure it flags it in our system so we don't miss your question coming in. But we're glad to have you all joining us here today, just working on syncing that clock with the official count, T-minus 29 minutes 43 seconds, and counting until liftoff. We are counting down to docking as well. Docking expected 1 day, 23 hours, 51 minutes, and counting from now. We'll be having our Crew Dragon tracker go up once Dragon is in the air, so you'll be able to follow along with the position of the ISS, and once we have live tracking of Dragon, following along with that as well, and that's going to be right here on YouTube. But glad to have so many of you joining us here today, people all over the world tuning in. We got Texas with Rebecca in here. Let's see, who else do we have? Where you're joining from? Let us know in the chat. We got JB is in Los Angeles. Great to have you here. We got Rob in the UK. Well, lots of people. We got Justin Traden in Port Orange, Florida. We got Durfake in Germany. Great to have you here. Darkfire's from the UK. Alan's in Oregon. Cole's in the Bahamas. Great to have you all joining us here today. As we said, we are counting down to the launch of CRS-27 up to the International Space Station. We're just waiting for SpaceX and NASA to begin their live commentary, but we do have this fantastic view for this evening's launch. Catching up on the chat here. few things that are on board today. One of the things that I'm most interested in personally, and if you've been following along what is on board with the science for the cargo resupplies, definitely let us know about that in the chat. Some amazing continuations of advancements for being able to produce organs on the International Space Station to help bring that transplant list being not needed and being able to actually just grow people their own new organs. So they're taking that to the next step and getting ready to actually grow full-scale stuff. So they'll talk more about that, I'm sure, during the live stream, but definitely check out the mission briefing for some more information about some of the amazing stuff on board today's cargo mission. Marcin, a good very early morning from Warsaw, Poland, 1 a.m., but I'm working on PhD, so I might as well watch the stream. Well, I hope we're not distracting you from what you need to do, but we're glad to have you here, and it is a very early morning there for you. But we're glad that we'll have you here with us, and hopefully some fantastic views of today's launch. We've been keeping an eye on the weather in the area. Everything's been looking pretty good as we've gone. There's no concerns of any of the biggest concern they had lately was the cloud layer for it. There's no risk of lightning at this time. Weather's good. Humidity's good, as you can see there on the screen. But we'll pop that weather overlay back up here in just a second. There we go. Oh, that's the wrong one. Let's fix that. 1 second. Bear with me. Let's try that again there. There we go. There's Kennedy's weather. So looking at current temperature, 16 degrees, very light winds to the north-northeast, and sunset occurring just a little while ago as we continue towards countdown now, 26 minutes and counting. You can see there on the live stream, they are observing some steady state winds at KSC at the 18 knots, but they do not have any strong wind warnings at this time, so they'll be keeping an eye on that. This is a mission up to the International Space Station, so because of that, they do watch for recovery zones for Cargo Dragon. So not only does the place of launch need to be good, but the abort zones for Cargo Dragon as well. Not as concerning because it's not a crew on board, but they do have to monitor those situations. So they monitor those all up and down the coast for today's launch. And it looks like SpaceX is getting ready to begin their live feed here. So we're going to patch them in and listen in to them for an update as we continue to count down 25 minutes, 30 seconds, and counting until launch. If you're just joining us, though, take a moment, engage that like button, and you can send in your questions throughout today's stream by tagging us at the launch pad, and we'll work on answering those live. Let's listen in to NASA and SpaceX for an update as we count down 25 minutes, 15 seconds, and counting until launch. Stay with us.
You are looking live at Launch Complex 39A at Kennedy Space Center. In less than half an hour, this Falcon 9 rocket will lift off carrying the 27th Commercial Resupply Services mission from both NASA and SpaceX to the International Space Station. Good evening and welcome to live coverage of the CRS-27 launch. I'm NASA's Jasmine Hopkins. Fueling of the Falcon 9 began about 10 minutes ago, and we're counting down to an instantaneous launch at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. This mission will deliver more than 6,000 pounds of science, supplies, and equipment to the space station. And these resupply missions help NASA and our partners continue research that could better our life right here on Earth and help us as we explore deep space. Let's go now to SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California, where Zachary Lupin is standing by to tell us more about the vehicle supporting today's mission. Zach?
Thanks, Jasmine. Hi, everyone. My name is Zachary Lupin, and I'm an avionics reliability engineer here at SpaceX. It's great to be covering today's mission in partnership with NASA. For those of you following along, today marks SpaceX's second Dragon mission this month, 17th launch this year, and 216th mission overall. And on your screen is a live view of SpaceX's two-stage Falcon 9 rocket with our Dragon spacecraft at the very top. As a note, Dragon is one of the few vehicles that can deliver significant cargo to the space station, and the only vehicle that can actually deliver cargo from it. Below Dragon is our Falcon 9 vehicle, which is actually two rockets in one. The lower part, also the largest part of the rocket, is called the first stage and takes up about 2/3 of the stack. It has 9 Merlin 1D engines, which accelerate the vehicle through the Earth's atmosphere and into various orbits in space. The smaller stage above the first stage and the black inner stage is called the second stage. Now, the two stages will separate about 2.5 minutes into flight, and then the second stage will ignite its single Merlin vacuum engine, which is the 10th engine on the rocket, to carry Dragon to its desired orbit. Falcon 9 and Dragon were both designed with reflight in mind, and the vehicle hardware is built to support multiple missions with minimal refurbishment needed. Today's Dragon is flying for its 3rd time, and the Falcon 9 first stage is flying for its 7th time, and we plan to recover and fly both the vehicle and the spacecraft again in the future. So far, we've reflown 149 first stages, including Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy, and we're planning to recover this booster on our drone ship, a Shortfall of Gravitas, which is currently stationed off the coast of Florida in the Atlantic Ocean. If successful, it will mark the 178th recovery of an orbital-class rocket. And lastly, we wanted to give a shout out to the recovery team supporting today's mission. In an industry that has historically been male-dominated, today's recovery operations are being managed by an all-female crew. In fact, we believe it to be the first all-female crew for any kind of operation like this. And if it's not the first, then we're in great company, and you can see shots of the crew there. Our recovery teams are responsible for operating the recovery vessels, securing and recovering the booster, and everything else required to make those operations possible. And on your screen right now is video of the crew breaking tow between our drone ship and our recovery vessel dug earlier today. This operation involves disconnecting the tow wire used to tow the drone ship from port onto location at the landing zone. We are in great hands with today's crew, and we wish the team a very successful mission. And for now, I'll turn it back over to Jasmine at KSC.
Thank you, Zach. In addition to SpaceX in California, NASA teams both here in Florida and Texas are monitoring today's launch. You'll hear from Dan Hewitt inside Mission Control in Houston. But first, let's check in with NASA's Megan Cruz, who's following along with the launch team here at Kennedy. Megan?
Hey, thank you, Jasmine. And yes, welcome everyone into Hangar AE at nearby Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. The U.S. Space Force monitors the range for us, making sure that it's safe to fly where we plan to fly, as well as the weather, which is looking really great for us tonight. So right now we are at 90% go. Launch Weather Officer Arlena Moses listing the thick cloud layer rule as just a small concern. Basically, she's monitoring some high clouds in the area that's coming in because of an upper level disturbance in the Gulf, but really she doesn't think it's really much to think about. Now back out to the launch pad 39A. Right now RP1 or rocket grade kerosene is being loaded into the first stage, already more than 85% full. Liquid oxygen is also going into the first stage, more than 50% already, and should begin on the second stage momentarily. Those white clouds you see that are billowing off, that's because SpaceX is venting off some of that liquid oxygen, and that happens when the liquid oxygen hits the humid Florida air. Now our instantaneous launch opportunity tonight is at 8:30 and 42 seconds Eastern Time if we want to dock with the International Space Station Thursday morning. For more on that, let's head on over to Dan Hewitt inside Mission Control in Houston.
Hey, thank you so much, Megan, and everybody. Welcome inside at Mission Control Houston at NASA's Johnson Space Center. I'm NASA's Dan Hewitt. It's pretty quiet in the room right now. The Orbit 3 team is on console, led by Ace Flight Director it's pretty quiet in the room right now. The Orbit 3 team is on console, led by Ace Flight Director Allison Bollinger. The crew is asleep on board the space station right now, and when they wake up tomorrow, we're hoping they've got a Dragon on their way towards the space station. It's going to be about 35 hours from launch until they dock on Thursday morning. They're going to be docking to the forward port on Node 2. It's the Harmony module on the station. That one was just vacated by the Crew 5 astronauts who left just a couple of days ago. Once they're able to dock, that's going to kick off a really furious month of science and cargo operations for the crew. They're going to have to work to execute a lot of these experiments while Dragon is still attached before they load it back up and send it home. Because again, Dragon, pretty much the only way we're getting large amounts of cargo back to Earth, returning those experiments for analysis back on the ground. But everything's looking great on the station side. We'll have some configuration work to do right before Dragon shows up, but everything looking good. The team has given their go from Houston for launch, and so we're looking good. So let's get back to the countdown. I'll send it over to Jasmine at the Kennedy Space Center.
Thank you to both Dan and Megan for those updates. It's great to hear we're looking good for tonight's launch. We are now at about 18 minutes and counting from liftoff of CRS-27. So let's get a closer look at some of the science flying on this mission.
And if you're just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad. You're looking at a live view of Launch Complex 39A at NASA Kennedy Space Center in Florida, where teams are preparing to launch cargo resupply mission number 27 with SpaceX with their Falcon 9 and their Cargo Dragon rocket. As you can see there, NASA playing through a bit of a video here showing some of the cargo they're going to be launching up onto the station here today in just 17 minutes, 45 seconds and counting from now. We're glad to have you joining us here. If you guys have questions, you can send those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad, and we'll work on answering those live throughout today's stream. If it's your first time here, though, welcome. Here at the launch pad, we bring you full live coverage of all the launches around the world, so make sure you engage that subscribe button so you never miss another live launch coverage or special event as well. Also consider joining us over on our Launchpad News channel. That's where we put all of our news updates and exclusive interviews, and coming out in the very near future is an interview with Copenhagen Suborbital on an update on their parachute program and their progress towards launch, and we're excited to bring that to you. So make sure you subscribe to the Launchpad News channel so you don't miss when that comes out. Timothy is asking, why is it going to take so long to get to the ISS? So due to its positioning and ISS operations, that's just the timeline of events that they've done today. This is the encounter that they've scheduled for. As they've said, it is an instantaneous launch window. So if they launch 1 second late, they will actually miss the International Space Station for docking, and that would ultimately lead to a scrub. But tonight, everything progressing well towards today's launch attempt. That is just the window that they have selected for this mission. They can go faster at times, but if there's no need to, they generally don't rush it and take the time. Dragon is a smart vehicle, so sometimes it does make up some of that time with its phasing burns while in orbit. We saw that with Crew before, where they've arrived actually a couple of hours ahead of schedule, so they always follow along with that while they go here today. But we're at T-minus 16 minutes, 7 seconds, and counting until launch. Propellant load is well underway on both the first and second stage of the Falcon 9 vehicle, and we do have mission control nets patched in, so as those updates do come in over the radio, we should be hearing those as well. Bones is asking, what route are they taking? I believe they are launching to the north tonight, to the northeast for today's launch to the International Space Station. Catching up on the chat on any questions, you guys can keep sending those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad, and we'll work on answering those throughout today's stream, and we'll listen back into NASA control here just a moment once they finish this video, as they love their music. So we are answering some questions here. Today's Falcon 9 booster is flying for its 7th mission, booster 1073, previously having supported Starlink 4-15, SES-22, Starlink 4-26, Starlink 4-35, the Hikuto RM1 and Lunar Flashlight mission, and Amazon Nexus. It previously flew February 6, 2023, so this is its next flight there, so a rather quick turnaround of just over a month, something we're seeing more and more frequently with these Falcon 9 vehicles. Tammy is watching the launch from the beach here near the Cape. That's awesome, Tammy. I hope you guys have a great view and enjoy that rumble. It's something to enjoy and experience. So glad to have you down there. Looks like it's a beautiful night for a launch. If you or anyone else happens to take pictures of today's launch, make sure you put those out on social media and tag us at TLPN_official on Twitter, or tag us with at the Launchpad on Facebook, and we'll keep an eye out for those. We might even be able to bring up a few of them on stream as well, so make sure you're doing that. If you're interested in considering joining our team, though, tlpnetwork.com/join. That's where you can apply to be a TLP rocket chaser, a writer, part of our social team, a moderator, and all those different things. We're excited to be growing our crew as we enter this new era of space exploration. There is so much activity happening, and we believe that space is better together, and we'd love to have some of you join our team here today. We're going to listen back in here to NASA as we count down through 13 minutes, 45 seconds and counting. Stay with us.
Supply Services mission from both NASA and SpaceX to the International Space Station. So let's bring back Zach now to tell us more about Dragonflight history and its impact on human spaceflight.
Thanks, Jasmine. As I mentioned previously, the Dragon supporting today's mission will be embarking on its third flight and will be joining the Crew 6 spacecraft already docked at the International Space Station. And speaking of Crew 6 lifted off from the same launch pad just 12 days ago on March 2nd with NASA astronauts Stephen Bowen and Woody Hoberg, UAE astronaut Sultan Al-Nayati, and Roscosmos cosmonaut Andrei Fedyaev, arriving at the orbiting laboratory about 24 hours later. Upon arrival, they were greeted by the Crew 5 astronauts who have been living and working on station for almost 6 months.
Looks like they might be having some audio hiccups there on their end as we continue through the count. T-minus 12 minutes, 30 seconds, and counting. Next major event that we're going to be looking for is engine chill. That's where they'll begin cooling those 9 Merlin 1D engines on the bottom of the Falcon 9 rocket ahead of launch. Lots of people just tuning in. Great to have you all here. We got Mara in Jacksonville. We got Mark in White Sands, New Mexico. Amnita's in Southern California, rainy Southern California.
We're close to finding out which 4 astronauts will be among the first crew to lift off on the Artemis II mission. We have that update and more in our Artemis Moon Minute.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Jasmine.
Of course, we're really excited to have you here. You guys are doing some very interesting research with Cardinal Heart, and you started with the first experiment, but now you're on the 2.0 version. Right. So can you tell us, what are you looking at in Cardinal Heart 2.0?
Yeah, that's right. So we're very much interested in understanding the effect of microgravity on the cardiovascular system. And as you may recall, back in 2016, we did our first experiment, which was we sent human-induced pluripotent stem cells that have been differentiated into cardiomyocytes, beating cardiomyocytes, and we generated this from 3 different individuals. We sent it up to space, and we found there were changes to these 2D human cardiomyocytes. So we follow it up with the December 2020 launch, in which we used 3D human engineered heart tissues. And in this case here, this allows us to understand the interaction of all the different cell types in the heart. The heart has cardiomyocytes, has fibroblasts, and also has endothelial cells. And what was surprising to us is that even the non-beating cardiomyocytes, for example, the fibroblasts, also show some altered function due to the microgravity. So in this current launch, what we're interested is setting up these 3D human cardio organoids. So we set up 3,888 cardio organoids to be exact, from 4 different individuals, 2 male, 2 female, 2 Caucasians, 2 African Americans. And here, we're trying to understand what is the effect of microgravity on these cardio organoids. We're also screening for different FDA-approved drugs that can be used to mitigate the effects of microgravity. And this is obviously in collaboration with the NIH NCATS, also with the International Space Station, and also with BioServe Space Technologies in Colorado, and also with UCSB. And finally, we're very grateful for the astronauts who's going to take care of these, what we call babies, for the next several weeks.
Right, yes, they're taking care of those babies that you guys have worked very hard on. And, you know, we're talking about doing this on the International Space Station, which is in low Earth orbit. But why is research like this so important as we're looking at going into deep space, you know, to the moon and then on to Mars?
Yeah, so that's a very important question, right? Because as you know, for deep space travel, microgravity and lack of gravity is an important issue. And you know, this is part of the reason why the astronauts, they need to be on stationary bikes when they're up in space. Also part of the reason why when they come back to Earth, you know, for the first 2 to 3 days, they have to adjust to the effect of gravity on our cardiovascular system. So what happens is, without gravity, your muscles, heart muscles, skeletal muscles, and also your blood vessels all atrophy. And so as you go deeper and deeper into space, for example, traveling to Mars, we're talking about a longer period of time without the effects of gravity on the cardiovascular system. So you're going to experience more issues, and that's part of the reason why these FDA-approved drugs are important.
Yeah, it's very important. Thank you so much for being here, Dr. Wu. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, now we're just about 7 minutes, or actually 6 minutes, until liftoff of CRS-27. So let's bring back Megan now here on Florida's Space Coast, and Zach live at SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California, to walk us through the final moments of countdown. Over to you guys.
Minus 5 minutes and 48 seconds, and the SpaceX team is working no significant issues, and the vehicle is healthy. Weather is 90% go, and the range is ready to support today's mission. At this point, Rocket Propellant 1, or RP1 fuel, is completely loaded on the second stage and nearly complete on the first stage. Now, liquid oxygen, or LOX, loading is currently underway on both stages and will complete at the T-minus 2 minutes mark before launch. We're also loading helium gas into both stages. Falcon 9 uses helium as a pressurant to backfill the propellant tanks as LOX and RP1 are consumed by the Merlin engines during ascent. Helium load began before the broadcast went live and will continue to top off until about 1.5 minutes before launch.
Now, to make sure engine startup goes well, SpaceX performs what it calls engine chill.
Dragon is in terminal count.
Call out for Dragon being in terminal count.
Tanks are pressurizing for strong back retract.
So back to that engine chill really quick. Happened T-minus 7 minutes, and that's when the team...
Dragon is in terminal count and it's on internal power.
Team flowed a small amount of the super chilled LOX into the Merlin engine's turbo pumps, and SpaceX does this to avoid a thermal shock to the system when that full flow of super chilled liquid oxygen hits the propulsion system. Now, Dragon is currently undergoing vehicle health checks with the next big step just before liftoff, when Dragon transitions to internal battery power.
And in just about 10 seconds, we should see those clamp arms opening on the transporter erector. The transporter erector, or TE, is that large truss structure adjacent to our Falcon 9 vehicle. The TE is used for vehicle rollout and to route propellants and electrical power to the vehicle in preparation for launch. Once the clamp arms have fully opened, the TE will then retract away from the rocket in preparation for liftoff. In these last few minutes before T0, Falcon 9 is performing final health checks on its primary communications, avionics, and propulsion systems. And there's that call out for strong back retract. We may also hear call outs that engines are sufficiently chilled if we get a little closer to liftoff. And if you've seen in a couple of our shots here, you may have noticed the Falcon 9 booster supporting today's mission is covered with quite a bit of soot. And that's because it's no stranger to space travel, having previously supported the Amazonas Nexus mission, SES-22, iSpace's Hakuto R Mission 1, and 3 Starlink missions. And as I mentioned earlier, today's mission marks the 7th flight for this
Stage 1
booster.
LOX load is complete.
T-minus 3 minutes and counting until launch of SpaceX Cargo Dragon and its resupply mission to the International Space Station. If you're just joining us, take a moment, engage that like button, share out the stream as we go through the final bits of the count. We're going to listen in to NASA and SpaceX mission control here, but as always here at the launch pad, we want to see that go, no go in the chat, and it is awesome because you guys are already on it. And let's continue as we count down T-minus 2 minutes, 30 seconds and counting until CRS-27 heads to the International Space Station.
Actuators are underway. This is often referred to as an engine wiggle test. This is when SpaceX moves the thrust nozzles ever so slightly to make sure the guidance hardware is ready for flight. SpaceX will do the exact same checkouts on the first stage engines, but that happens just seconds before ignition.
And in just a few moments, we should hear that call out for Stage 2 LOX load complete.
Stage 2 LOX load is complete.
And there's that call out. And this will wrap up propellant loading for
Dragon
both stages
in
of
auto.
the Falcon 9. Dragon is also performing its final health checks to make sure all the vehicle's primary systems are ready for its rendezvous with the International Space Station. And you may have noticed some white clouds around the vehicle, but that's actually quite normal. Those clouds you see are the chilled gas above the LOX tank liquid surface that we vent overboard to maintain pressure in the tank as needed. And when that gas comes out into contact with the warm, humid Florida air, the air condenses into clouds and water.
Now in just about 5 seconds, Dragon transitions to internal power. Falcon 9 computers will enter startup mode, which is when the Falcon 9
Falcon
flight
9 is in
computers...
startup.
There you go.
Dragon is in countdown.
Is when the Falcon 9 flight computers take control of the countdown and will guide the rocket through the last seconds before liftoff.
Go for launch.
All right, both stages are now pressurizing for launch. At launch, the International Space Station will be over the Indian Ocean, south of India, at an altitude of 261 statute miles.
T-minus 30 seconds.
Counting down for NASA and SpaceX's 27th commercial resupply mission.
$15 seconds. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Engines full power. And liftoff of CRS-27. Go Falcon, go Dragon.
Falcon 9 soars off the launch pad. Dragon now on its way to the International Space Station with important new science experiments and crew supplies.
Stage 1 chamber pressure is nominal.
At T plus 40 seconds, Falcon 9 has successfully lifted off from historic launch
Power and
complex
telemetry nominal.
39A in Florida. We're now coming up on our max Q in about 20 seconds or so, which is the point of maximum aerodynamic pressure the vehicle will go through during its flight.
Sonic. Max Q.
And there's that call out for Max Q. Coming up next are 5 events back-to-back. First is main engine cutoff, or MECO, which is when all 9 of the Merlin 1D engines on the first stage will shut down. After those 9 engines shut down, the first and second stages will separate, also called out over the nets as stage separation. Then the first stage will flip. Then the first stage will flip around to make its way back to its landing site, the drone ship named a shortfall of gravitas. The second stage will then ignite its Merlin vacuum engine to boost Dragon to low Earth orbit during SES-1. And the last event is the boost back burn to reduce velocity of the first stage in preparation for atmospheric entry. And this whole sequence will take place over about 30 seconds or so. Now we should be hearing that call out for main engine cutoff in about 20 seconds from now. Wonderful tracking shot of our rocket.
MECO. Stage separation confirmed. Back ignition.
Stage 1 boost back startup.
And there's all of those callouts for those milestones. So we had MECO, stage separation, a stage 1 flip, second engine start 1, and the start of the partial boost back burn. While a boost back burn is normally performed in order to return the first stage to one of our landing zones, here we are just performing a partial boost back. This shortened burn, possible due to payload weight, will allow us to recover the Falcon 9 booster much closer to the coast and shorten the drone ship's journey back to shore by about 1.5 to 2 days.
Stage 1 boost back shutdown.
And there's confirmation of boost back shutdown. If you're just tuning in, you're watching a live webcast for the 27th commercial resupply mission to the International Space Station for NASA. This is SpaceX's 17th mission for 2023 and the second Dragon flight to the International Space Station this year. We lifted off from Kennedy Space Center's historic Launch Complex 39A just about 3 minutes and 45 seconds ago. On the left side of your screen is the Falcon 9 first stage that is making its way back to Earth, and on the right side is the second stage. The second stage, and you can see that MVAC engine there. As a reminder, today's mission marks the 7th flight for this Falcon 9 booster, which previously supported the Amazonas Nexus mission, SES-22, iSpace's Hakuto R Mission 1, and 3 Starlink missions. Now, in order to make its way back to our drone ship, a shortfall of gravitas, it has 2 more burns to execute. The first is the entry burn, where 3 of the Merlin engines, engines 1, 5, and 9, will reignite. This helps to slow the stage down as it re-enters the upper part of the Earth's atmosphere. The second burn is the landing burn, and this is a single engine burn, engine 9, that brings the vehicle's speed down rapidly in order to land on the drone ship. Now, occasionally on your screen, when the booster is visible, you may see some nitrogen gas bursts, and these are used for attitude control as the booster makes its way back to the drone ship. Falcon 9 is also equipped with 4 hypersonic grid fins positioned near the top of the first stage. And once in the atmosphere, Stage 1 is only using the grid fins for steering as it makes its return to Earth, these titanium descent. And there's that call out for nominal trajectories. On the left side of your screen, you can just make out some civilization of Earth, on Earth. In just about 8 seconds from now, we should see that first stage entry burn begin.
Stage 1 FTS is saved.
Right now, on the right side of your screen, you can currently see that. You can currently see Stage 2, and there's confirmation of first stage entry burn startup. And probably saw it as well. Again, this is the first of 2 burns that the booster performs before landing on the drone ship.
Stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
Now, as we get closer to the first stage landing, it's good to note that the Falcon 9 first stage is equipped with 4 landing legs made of state-of-the-art carbon fiber with aluminum honeycomb. And these are placed symmetrically around the base of the rocket and deployed just prior to landing. If successful, this landing will mark the 178th time that we've recovered a first stage booster, including both Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy missions. And we're about 15 seconds or so away from landing. The vehicle is traveling about 1,600 kilometers per hour. And this really puts into perspective the deceleration of the rocket. In the span of less than a minute, we'll have reduced from twice the speed of a jet all the way down to 0 as the rocket lands.
Stage 1, landing burn.
And there's the start of that first stage landing burn on the left side of your screen.
Stage 1, landing leg deploy.
And there you saw the Falcon 9 first stage successfully land, and you can probably hear the cheering behind me. The Falcon 9 first stage that supported today's mission landed for the 7th time, having previously supported Amazonas Nexus, SES-22, iSpace's Hakuto R Mission 1, and 3 Starlink missions. Today's landing also marks the 178th successful landing for an orbital-class rocket. As mentioned previously, today's recovery operations are being managed by an all-female recovery team, and this is a really cool moment for the industry and SpaceX. There's that call out that Stage 2 FTS is saved. And we should have second stage engine cutoff here shortly.
Pico.
There's that call out of SECO.
Nominal orbit insertion.
And there's the key call out of nominal orbital insertion. At T plus 9 minutes into the mission, we are coming up on the last major task for Stage 2, commanding separation of Dragon a couple minutes from now. We expect to have video of Dragon separation from the top of the second stage, which looks into the trunk. CRS-27 will be joining the Crew 6 vehicle, currently on orbit, so we'll be back to having 2 Dragon spacecraft docked at the International Space Station.
Expected loss of signal. Okay.
As for cargo, today we will be delivering more than 6,000 pounds of science, research, crew supplies, and vehicle hardware to the orbital laboratory and its crew. To date, SpaceX has sent and brought back over 270,000 pounds of crew and cargo to and from the space station. As a reminder, this is the 3rd flight for this Dragon capsule, having previously supported CRS-22 in June of 2021 and CRS-24 in December of 2021. Once the Dragon capsule jettisons from the second stage, it has 16 Draco thrusters, each with the capability to deliver 90 pounds of force, and those will be used for maneuvering. There are 4 pairs of 3 thrusters spaced evenly around the capsule, as well as 4 forward bulkhead thrusters underneath the nose cone. Now, notably, Dragon does not have super Draco thrusters, seats, or life support systems, as it is not carrying crew, and this saves on weight, space, and also allows for a faster refurbishment time. And while initial designs of Dragon carried solar arrays extended outward from the trunk, the cylindrical structure located directly behind the Dragon capsule, the current Dragon has these arrays fixed directly to the trunk. And you may see at some point both a light and dark side of the trunk. And that dark side is actually those solar panels. And the light side is a radiator to help cool the spacecraft. And once the Dragon capsule reaches the ISS, it will be able to autonomously dock using its navigation sensors, centerline camera, and light detection and ranging equipment. It's also good to note the Dragon capsule is connected to the trunk beneath it via the trunk claw and connects thermal control, power, and avionics systems components between the trunk and the capsule. And if you're just joining us, you're watching a live view of Dragon successfully disconnecting from the second stage, heading to the International Space Station. This is the 27th commercial resupply mission to the International Space Station for NASA. This is SpaceX's 17th mission this year and second Dragon flight to station for 2023. We lifted off about 12 minutes and 23 seconds ago from Kennedy Space Center at historic Launch Complex 39A. And there you can see Dragon slowly drifting away from the second stage. The next milestone coming up is the nose cone opening sequence, which protects the docking ring and navigation sensors. And that's going to do it for me here in Hawthorne, so I'm going to throw it back over to Dan in Houston.
Hey, thank you so much, Zach, and hello everyone once again from Mission Control Houston. Great to see another Dragon on orbit. You've got a happy team here in Mission Control, and we'll have a happy crew of 7 astronauts and cosmonauts on board the space station when they wake up tomorrow with Dragon now on its way. As Zach said, the next milestone that we're going to be keeping an eye out for is going to be the nose cone open. This takes a couple of minutes, and that's to open the nose cone, so it's exactly what it sounds like. It's at the very top, or the nose part of Dragon, and that's going to slowly open up to reveal a couple of different components. That nose cone stays closed during the flight up to orbit, just to protect some of those more sensitive instruments from the thermal and aerodynamic loads that Dragon's experiencing on its ride uphill. Once it opens up, we're going to be revealing a couple of different things, including some propulsion elements, primarily 4 forward bulkhead Draco thrusters. Those are the primary thrusters that Dragon is going to be using for its major delta velocity burn. So those are just firings of the engines to gradually raise its orbit as it gets closer and closer to the space station. It's also going to reveal a suite of navigation equipment. Dragon has a couple of different methods to essentially find its way through outer space, and underneath the nose cone there is something called the Dragon Eye, star trackers, and then it will also be pairing that with an inertial measurement unit and GPS sensors, all of these kind of working in tandem to essentially tell Dragon where it is in outer space and where it needs to head. We also do what's called a state vector upload to the spacecraft just prior to launch, telling it where space station is, and then once it gets closer, we'll have what's called relative GPS systems that will be able to talk to each other between Dragon and space station, just as they start talking to each other, let them know where they are, and those come really in handy when we start getting into the integrated operations, which you're going to be seeing a lot more of this room once we arrive on Thursday morning, as when we're in integrated operations, you've got a team here in Houston and a team out in Hawthorne that are working to bring us Dragon in. But we are getting closer to that nose cone to start opening. There are 12 hooks around essentially the docking ring of the Dragon spacecraft. 6 of those are actually holding the nose cone in place during the launch. All 12 are closed when we're launching, and we open them up. If you've watched any of the previous crew missions or even the cargo missions, we do them in 2 different sets, 2 sets of 6. So one set already open, the second set opening now, and once that second set is open, the nose cone will start to deploy. Again, it takes a couple of minutes for that nose cone to open, usually about 5 minutes or so, and then it'll gradually open. It swings open a little more than about 110 degrees, so that gives Dragon plenty of clearance to dock with the space station, as this is going to reveal also the docking ring, and that's what Dragon's going to be using to actually dock with the International Docking Adapter on board the station, and we're heading to the forward port. We have 2 of those on the U.S. segment right now with the docking adapters, the forward port and the Zenith, or the space-facing port, on Node 2, the Harmony module. And this Dragon is going to be bound for the forward port. It was just left vacant by the Crew Dragon Endurance, which brought Crew 5 home over the weekend after 157 days in space. And this Dragon is bound for that one to kick off really about a month and change of really intense cargo and science operations. But at this moment in time, one set of hooks open. We're still waiting for that second set of 6 to open up. And then once that happens, the nose cone will start to deploy. Shortly after that, we'll do checkouts of those forward bulkhead Dracos, those 4 Dracos that are hiding underneath the nose cone right now. And once those are checked out, we'll be pretty much ready to go. And as Dragon will start to do its different phasing burns to get to the space station. And sounds like we've got all 6 of the second set are now open and just standing by, and it looks like the nose cone has started to deploy. So again, this is going to kick off a couple of minutes for the nose cone to fully open, but all hooks are open and the nose cone is deploying. While we wait for the nose cone to open, I do want to bring in, we have a guest real quickly. We have Phil Dempsey. He's the manager of the Vehicle Integration Office in NASA's International Space Station program, basically the guy overseeing all the different spacecraft responsible for bringing crew and cargo up to the space station. Phil, first, thanks so much for joining me. Just want to get your thoughts real quick. Walk us through, we've got another Dragon mission heading to the station. What's this going to mean for those crew members on board?
Hey, yeah, thanks. So first of all, just saw a really great launch from our SpaceX team down here in Florida. Getting a new Dragon is really exciting for the crew for a couple of reasons. First, like you just kind of mentioned, these cargo missions are really action-packed times for the crew. It starts when they dock Thursday morning. We're just getting into the vehicle, getting critical research out into its location on the ISS. Then the crew does some standard cargo ops and payload moves across this 30-day mission. But while they're doing that, they're also doing critical research that actually has to be completed during the dock mission in order to get those results back down on that same vehicle when it comes down a little over 30 days after it goes up. Then it's time to get it repacked with hardware. Additionally, these cargo missions are the few chances we have to get fresh or refrigerated food up to the crew. So, we give them a little taste of home. They got some fresh fruit and cheeses on this one.
And I know they're asleep, but I think they're going to be pretty excited when they wake up. We actually have some live views now of the nose cone opening. We're about halfway through. But Phil, before I let you go, just general feelings from you, the program. This has been just another incredibly busy spring. It feels like we're always in the busy season with Station. We just brought a crew home over the weekend after launching another one. What's it been like to just balance all of the traffic coming and going from the space station?
Yeah, it seems like we're partway through and there's a lot going on. It is really exciting. As for the pace, most of us probably wouldn't have it any other way, I'll tell you. We're in our 3rd decade of operating this orbiting research facility, and these are the crew and cargo missions to keep it going. But if you look ahead, added into that mix, we got an upcoming Boeing first crewed flight. We've got a second private astronaut mission. So while busy times for sure, it's really inspiring what we're doing across, in this industry across this, dedicated and great partnerships with NASA, commercial, providers and international teams. It's just really exciting for the program, and we're really proud to be part of it.
All right. Well, again, that was Phil Dempsey. Phil, thank you so much for dialing in. Phil's the manager of the Vehicle Integration Office from the International Space Station program for NASA. Thank you, Phil.
All right. Thanks. You have a good evening.
You too.
And if you're just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad. You heard it there just a moment ago. Nose cone open confirmed. You can see a live view inside Johnson Mission Control in Houston at NASA, where we are now 20 minutes, 38 seconds into flight of CRS-27 on its way to the International Space Station. We've got our live Cargo Dragon tracker stream up and running, so you can stay in the live chat and follow along. We'll add on the live cargo Dragon position once we have that. But that's going to wrap it up for us here today in our live launch coverage of CRS-27 with nose cone open. Dragon is well on its way to the International Space Station. We are now 1 day, 23 hours, 23 seconds and counting until docking. So we hope you'll join us back here for our live commentated coverage for final rendezvous and docking. But in the meantime, as we said, that Dragon tracker will be live throughout the rest of the time. Of course, it is launch day. You can get 10% off of everything over on the TLP store. Use promo code LAUNCHDAY, as well as if you're interested in joining our team. We did just relaunch our applications. You can head over to tlpnetwork.com/join, fill out an application there, and we'd invite you to join us as part of our TLP crew. The International Space Station is preparing to greet the cargo Dragon in just over a day and a half from now. They'll be doing their final preparations, but that's going to do it for us here at the launch pad. Here at the launch pad, it's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow, because we believe that space is better together. Make sure you subscribe so you never miss another live launch coverage, docking, undocking, or return to Earth. But this was our live coverage of CRS-27. We hope to see you next time. But from TLP HQ, my name's Zach. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.